Howdy ho, neighbors! Thank you for coming to our How to Install a Thermostat class sponsored by Old National Bank. My name is Sesha Noack. I'm a part of the education team. At Community Homeworks, our goal is to empower our neighbors to maintain safe, sustainable, and dignified homes. And today, our lunch is from Kazoopies, so enjoy that. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Harry, who's going to be our instructor for tonight, or this afternoon.
All right, now, you getting me now? All right, I won't go back and do everything else, so that's fine. All right, so anyway, um, it's really just a switch, a little more complex than just on and off. You could wire a furnace or a cooling system to be controlled with just a switch. Flip it on when you're cold, heat comes on. When you're warm enough, you're going to flip it off. Uh, there's a little more complexity to that because doing that, you could actually get it too hot or too cold. Okay, you got to have something that can read the temperature. But a thermostat is basically a switch. That's all it is. The first part on there in the handout that you have shows the manual thermostats. They're the cheapest thing you can pick up. Price range from about $20 to $50. I'm sure you could even pick them up cheaper. And obviously, you can always find things that are more expensive. The picture on there shows examples of 3 different types of manual thermostats. The one over on the extreme left, that's an electronic one. Those are kind of new in the industry. And all they are is just an electronic version of the other 2. I have a couple examples here. I was able to find in the back room here of the 2 other types. These are pretty much becoming obsolete. This one doesn't have the cover on it, but the picture on the handout does. And this one. Now, the reason that they've become obsolete is the federal government kind of doesn't like them out there anymore because they have a mercury switch in them. Can you get that on there? Get a close up on it, or would that camera be better off if I put it on the desk?
No, you're good.
All right. A mercury switch. Can you see? That's a little glass vial that's on there. And that glass vial has a little drop of mercury in it. Now, mercury's so bad these days, right? Heck, when I was a kid, we used to have a jar of mercury we'd push around the floor and play with. And I guess maybe I explained some of the problems that, But I put a graphic up here. That vial, which I represent with this orange glass vial, will have 3 contacts in it. One that's common, that brown blob that I tried to put on there, represents mercury. It's a metal, but in standard temperatures, normal temperatures, it's a liquid. One of the contacts is for the heating side. The other contact is for the cooling side. Now, if you don't have cooling, it doesn't matter. But if you do have cooling, it does matter. And that vial sits on a bimetal strip. And a bimetal strip, it's kind of a coil shape. Neither of these really show it very well, but you can almost see there's a coil on there. You got that in the picture there? Good enough. All it is a piece of two pieces of metal that are bonded together, two different kinds of metal. So they contract and expand at different levels, and that coil will then change directions. Okay, clearing up there? If it tips that vial down to where the mercury touches the heating contact, the heat will come on. And once you get warm enough, it rolls back, shuts it off. Same thing is true about the cooling side. If it rolls over to the cooling contact, it turns on the cooling side until it's cool enough, then it rolls back. Very simple mechanism, very simple style. There are some out there now that use a bimetal strip and it makes electric contacts rather than having the mercury in it. And the one in that far left on the handout, that one just uses electronics, what's called a thermistor, little device that reads temperature and electronically. They're affordable, very inexpensive. There's no programming on it. It's simple to use. You turn it to whatever temperature you want, and it runs the system. But again, the downside is you have to manually change it. So if you're like us in our house, where we keep the house this time of year right about 68, but at night we go down to 65, rather than having to go over and turn it down to 65, and then I have to get up while it's still 65, so my wife will come up, when she wakes up it'll be 68. All's good. The next thing is the programmable sets. This is an example here of one of them. Found that in the back. I haven't had a chance to play with it. And this is just another one. Programmable stats are almost as easy as dealing with the manual, except you got to usually program in the time, the day, sometimes the year, because if they use, some of them will actually pick up the daylight savings changes. Most of them are what's called a 5-2, which means that you can program it for 5 days a week and 2 days a week. A daily or a weekday and a weekend setting, which is when things sometimes end up changing. Programmable stats, other than the fact that they can be somewhat convoluted in programming because you got to push this button and push another button to get time and so on there. That's about the hardest part of them. Their next thing about them is that they just tend to be a little more expensive than a manual stat. They will, of course, help your heating costs go down some, particularly if you have it programmed to the best times for you. You might have to check it out though, because sometimes your heating system is not designed for that. That would be particularly if you have some sort of electric heating in the house, because they usually have to have a line voltage stat, but there are even line voltage ones. Probably, I guess the big thing is they're worth the money. They just make life a little easier. That's in my opinion, anyway. What you do get from a programmable stat is that many of them you can set to either the heat season or the cooling season, or you can program them to be heat and cool. And when they do that, like during the spring and the fall, where in Michigan we run from sub-zero to 90 degrees in within 24 hours. Okay, I'm sarcastic. That's all right. You get the idea. Well, you get the idea. Anyway, it's changed. It's handy, but I recommend most people don't do that. Don't set it to that setting. We ran into, when I was working for the heating and cooling company, we had to send out technicians on several times, particularly around the Christmas holidays. They'd have their thermostat set at heat cool. Automatically decides, should we go cool, should we go heat? And that would be one that would read outside temperature oftentimes. What happens is we're on the heat cycle. Thanksgiving. You're cooking. The family's over. All of a sudden, the house heats up a little bit. And now the thermostat thinks, oh, wait, we got to go to the cooling cycle. Okay, that's not a big problem, except most condensers, the thing that sits outside on your central cooling, is not designed to work in cold weather. And if it kicks on when it's too cold, it can actually break down the condenser. So it's a convenience, but to me, and that's my experience, it's not worth it. Now, the next thing that shows up on the handout are the smart Wi-Fi thermostats. That's what this was supposed to be about. A smart Wi-Fi thermostat is just a more advanced version of a programmable stat. It has Wi-Fi capabilities, which means it'll connect to your home Wi-Fi system. And then you can, through the Wi-Fi system, usually there's a program on your phone, you can control that thermostat with your phone, tablet, computer, whatever. It just makes programming a little easier is what it comes down to. Because rather than trying to push a bunch of buttons, trying to get the time, date, and so on, that just does the job. It's just much easier to use on the phone. And we got a lot of folks coming in, just pick up where we are, and we'll be having a good time with it. Nice thing about the big advantages to this is you have remote access. You can be somewhere in your house, and control it, or someplace at least where you can control it through your Wi-Fi system. And it'll also keep track of trends for you. It's just, again, more complicated, but more features than the standard programmable. Of course, on the downside, they are expensive. They usually start around $100, go up as much as $250, and they can even go higher than that. I've seen a few that are even higher than that. Now, I have noticed that Consumers Energy does have some programs where you can get one for free, and it's worth looking at. I think you have to have one of their programs comes in and assess your home, and there's a lot of rules on it. I didn't spend a lot of time researching that, but they'll take, and it will be one of the more $100 units ones rather than the $250 or $300 units. They don't work with all heating and cooling systems.
Oh, that was my next question.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, if you have an older unit, older heating and cooling system, it may or may not work. Anything that's come out in the last, let's say, 10 years, probably has a control board that can work with this. Of course, if you go with one of the systems or you get a heating and cooling tech come in there, they can immediately check out and see if you've got that a furnace that will handle that. And of course, if you're not real comfortable playing around with high-tech material, like my wife, there's a little bit more to it. And my wife's a wonderful person. I really, together now, what, 51 years last week. So, wow, yeah. It's a miracle, I'm telling you. It's an absolute, no, it's a miracle she's put up with me that long. But she gets freaked out, afraid of things that are high tech. She understands it, but she figures she doesn't. And that's, anyway, getting back to what's really here, like I said, I get off the subject sometimes. If you're not real comfortable getting into the high tech things, again, save the money. In fact, a lot of these smart Wi-Fis, they have proximity detectors in them, and they start knowing whether you're in the house, what you're doing, and they will actually kind of reprogram to feel your particular lifestyle. Just another way of looking to see what you're doing in the house, I guess. But I don't know. To me, I think they're expensive for what they do. Now, my son, on the other hand, he went to the next one, which is on the list, the communicating Wi-Fi thing. He's an airline pilot. He's into that technical stuff. The communicating thermostats probably are the most efficient of all of them because you can control them from anywhere. Oh, I'd love to have one of those when I'm away from the house. I could mess with my wife like you wouldn't believe. I might even look into that. It'd be worth the money. But you can be out, you can be in Europe and change the temperature in your house. And going back, since we're on the same kind of thing, I did forget to mention a lot of the more advanced smart Wi-Fi, well, the smart ones, but the programmable also will have what they call a vacation setting. Okay, and I forgot to mention that. That's a real neat one. We had a thermostat in our house in the Detroit area before we moved here that had that. So we'd go on vacation sometimes in January. I'd leave, I'd say, keep the house at 60. And then we come home, and of course, it's like 13 degrees out here. Put it on, turn it up to the 68 degrees. It takes a long time to heat up a house after that. Okay. This one, you can tell it you're going to be back in a number of days, and it will automatically bring the heat up, or in the summertime, the cooling down. But getting back to the communicating ones, that way you're on your way back home, it's like, oh, I better turn up the heat, and you do that. It's that simple. Again, they're more expensive. Every time it gets a little more expensive. These things, I've got it from between $200 and $500. I did a little research, and that's what their starting of range. I saw one that was $795. And again, sometimes I think some of those things, I didn't do a lot of research on what that one did more than any other one. But to me, sometimes people just got too much money at this point. That's what it comes down to. So, and again, just like some of the other more advanced thermostats, they don't always work on all systems. Okay, that's a big thing. Well, I'll be honest with you. Even one of these manual thermostats, which is simply you just change the angle on the coil, they won't work on all systems. They'll work on most systems. If you have electric heating of any sort, there's another unit that looks very much like this, but it gets line voltage. It reads line voltage. Line voltage is the 120 volts that comes out of the wall, as opposed to 24 volts that a furnace has. So getting into the installation on it. I've been playing with this one over here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'll just kind of pull the cover off. And there are, usually coming out of the wall, there's a red, a white, a blue, a green, and a yellow wire. That goes down to the furnace. I'll set that there and put it back later. The red wire is what powers it. It also gets the power to the heating. The white wire controls the heat relay. That basically is what turns the furnace on and off. The yellow does the same for the cooling. The green controls the fan that's on your furnace. And the blue is a common. That's just kind of like the neutral. If you're going to go out and replace a thermostat like this one with something that looks more like this one, I want to caution you to not rely on the color of the wires that are coming out of the wall. Okay? A good furnace installer would have the red going to a terminal that says R, red. They'll have the blue, usually on the C, which is common. White will go with W, yellow go with Y, and green will go with green. Now that's if it's properly installed. Sometimes installers have a ball of spool of wire in their trucks when they're hooking up the furnace, and it may not have all those colors on it, or it may have different colors. So if you're going to do any installation on, change the installation, when you take off the wires, put a little label on it. So let's just say a purple wire is now connected to the R terminal. Take a little piece of tape and write R on it for red, so you know that purple is really red. And the same with any other color that might be on any of the other terminals. Put down their letter on it. I think this one is the one that shows. Sometimes you'll end up where there's an RH and an RC. RH is controlling heating. RC controls cooling. And in this case, this one has a little piece of wire across it. In other words, this one electronically will read heating or cooling when necessary. If you see that when you take off an old thermostat, make sure to make a note of that. In fact, the best thing I've found when I'm doing any kind of work like that is bring out my phone and take a quick picture of it. And that'll help you. I think that's got anything. Is there? Let me ask you now if there's something you would have a question about. And
You mentioned that condensers
after a certain temperature, usually it's after about 40. Depends on the condenser, but if it's cold weather, if it's winter weather, the condenser should not run. If you have central cooling, what I do is usually outside the house, there's the condensing unit, and on the wall, there's a little gray square box. If you open that box up, there's usually like a black colored handle, or it could be almost any color, but it's a small handle, about so big, real thin. You pull that out, and there's two cartridge type fuses in there. You pull it out, you flip it over and put it back. And all that did is it doesn't allow any power to go to your condenser. It's very simple to do. And that's there because if a technician's going to be working on the condenser, they don't want your house cooling happen when they're working on it. Because that fan can be, you know. Word to the wise, and something I didn't do this year, and I was on the phone calling a technician to come out and check out our unit. Don't forget you did that in the fall and you forgot to put it back in the spring. And that was making a lot of bad words come out of our mouth. All right, you got another question here.
Good day. Good morning, everybody. So you did do a great job of answering. I had a couple of questions, but you covered those things, so it clarified for me. But in regarding changing an older thermostat out to a smart thermostat, is there anything to check to make sure the system is compatible before going to get the system? Like, is there a required, on the furnace,
Now you're getting into something that I don't feel comfortable going into a furnace and working on it.
Okay.
I will just say if you've got a furnace that's even 15 years old, it's likely to be compatible.
Okay.
If you've got one that's 20 years old, you might want to reconsider even doing anything with that furnace.
All right, but likely before going to purchase or receiving one of those, say, smart thermostats from Consumers Energy, likely just assume it's compatible. That's 10, 15 years. I don't need to go check the system first before I begin to.
And if you go with Consumers Energy, I think they will come in to tell you if yours is compatible.
Okay, sure.
Check, just go on their site and they'll explain it all to you. It's a good, they want to sell you something, they want you using their products. I guess I never understood when Consumers Energy tries to tell you how to save energy, but what are they selling you? It seems, but yeah. Anything else? Yes.
If you decide to, if you have a unit that's over 20 years old, but you decide you want a smart thermostat, so would you just go about rehauling the whole thing? Would that be
no? I think if you've got a unit that's over 20 years old, if it's 30 years old, you're probably not going to be able to put a smart stat on.
Right.
But if you've got a unit that's 20 years old and you can put a smart stat on it, when that furnace goes out, that you can still keep that stat. It'll still work with it. And again, I use that 20-year-old thing. Typically, a furnace and an air conditioning system is good for 20 years. My parents had the old-fashioned octopus thing, the gravity type. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep messing with you. No, I told you I walk around a lot. So when we got rid of their house, let's see, it was built in 51. It was, I want to say it was in the 80s when we sold the house. It was still working. There's no moving parts in there. The only thing that could possibly go wrong is the heat exchanger. And, today, heat exchangers, that's the thing where the burner is inside the furnace, but the outside is what it heats so that you don't have a flame giving you carbon monoxide poisoning. It goes up. That's what a heat exchanger is. Today, heat exchangers, like in that unit there, is sheet metal. That one that was in my parents was a big old piece of cast iron. I mean, that's how we made things then, What have we've been in our house now for 7.5 years. We just moved here. We replaced our range. I'm getting into appliance things. We replaced our range right after we moved in because it was electric. My wife said, I'm not cooking on electric. Well, I agree. I don't cook on electric. But then again, I don't cook. So we put a new one in. 4 months ago, we had to replace that one. And that's after 2 repairs. Yeah. And I don't think it was just the brand. It was an LG. It's a pretty good brand. It's just what we're doing with making appliances now is probably planned obsolescence. You know, you'll see refrigerators out that have been working for 60 years. Now, not really efficient, but nonetheless, that's typical. Anybody else? Just anything, you know. You can ask me anything about, you know, what's going on outside. If I don't have an answer for you, I can make up a really good one. All right.
Good afternoon, John Hunter. Please tell us about programs where the utility company can remotely turn down the heat or air conditioning.
Do they have it here? I think we have the smart, what they call the smart electric meters, something on the line. Is that what you're referring to? Something?
Well, yes, in times of excessive electricity demand, utility companies do have a smart meter. They can reduce your electric flow.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, if you have one of these communicating thermostats, also in those times they can turn down heating or air conditioning. So please tell us.
If it's compatible to where they can have control of it, they can. Now, are you asking me how I feel about that?
I'm just asking you if you have those kind of programs here.
I don't know if they have them here. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. Again, I've come from the east side of the state, and I don't know enough about what's going on. But if they have it here, I would avoid it. Okay. I can withstand it if they lowered my temperature in the winter. But if it's 98 degrees outside, I want my air conditioner working. Does that answer your question? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, I just get what you know about it. I want people to know that if you do get one of these communicating, that what consumers are promoting, the ones that could give you free, I bet that you're giving consumers the permission to turn down your heating or air conditioning when they find it desirable. So you're giving up some control with these communicating thermostats.
You know, you mentioned that, and I think, I didn't do real heavy research into that. I was just kind of glancing at it, and I do think I remember seeing where they could take control of it. And it's probably again through Wi-Fi, and if they can get into that, and again, I'm getting into things that I don't understand about Wi-Fi and so on, but I mean, I know that my security system is on Wi-Fi, and if it goes off, the alarm company can contact me, and they can look at my cameras inside and tell me what's going on. So yes, I'm sure that they can do that with the thermostat. And then you run into the issue, if you have an on-demand generator, and they lower your temperature, or they raise your temperature, or there's a brownout, that will kick in. And now you're using gas. So I'm putting a lot of personal feeling into it, but, you know, I understand that. You know, I mean, we broke down and got one of those an on-demand generator because that last, that thing 2 Februarys ago, we thought we were going to stick it out until the Saturday morning when it was 37 degrees in the house. And it was at that same time that I had to go to my son's house and help my daughter-in-law get their generator started. They got a full start thing, and I said, I'm not going with that. I'm too old for that. So, but that's another issue too. Anything else about it? I mean, if not, please enjoy lunch and ask any other questions.
A question that's not related to any of this. You said
I don't
ask
care.
about anything.
I'm here for another. I don't have to be to Oshmo until 3 o'clock, so I'm in good shape.
Yeah, I have a question about, I have a dehumidifier in my basement,
Okay.
and it takes out so much heat. When I go down in the basement, it's so hot, the air that blows from it. So like, it's hot in my house. I don't have, central air, but I don't know what to do or how to program it or do something so it doesn't kick out so much heat. Or it's ridiculous how hot it is.
I can understand that. And I can, you know how a dehumidifier works?
I know it sucks the air of the.
It's a mini air conditioner, is what it is. Okay. Air conditioning, when what was it? Mr. Carrier, the guy who invented air conditioning for the home, he never designed it to cool the house. It was to remove humidity from the house. And that's how an air conditioner works. It refrigerates the air and it takes the moisture out. Your dehumidifier puts it down a hose or into a bucket or whatever you have. So if you stand outside a window air conditioner
Yeah.
or a room air conditioner or even a condenser, it's hot coming off of there. That's how it works. And that's exactly what's happening. Now, how do you keep your house cooler? Turn down the humidistat.
Well, it's like automatic, so I need to just control it, or I can just turn it way down.
Is there, it should have a control, but some maybe
Yeah.
don't. In which case you plug it in and unplug it. I mean, you know, that's the only thing I can say. But that's why it's heating up, because that's what it's supposed to do.
Okay, I have to take another look at that and see if I adjust
Okay.
that.
Yeah, you got a question?
I know, I'm just taking all the information in. Are you here tonight with Gary?
No, I'm not here tonight. Part of the reason they put me here is because I'm the retired guy, so I've got days free. And they couldn't find anybody else. That's why. Here. Oh, here comes Harry. He's a sucker. Come on in here. We'll give him lunch, though. All right, see? And I'll tell you what, that Kazubi, you guys have done a pretty good job on the lunches. You know, that's what I found that out. It's like whenever you're having a meeting of some sort, have food. Yeah. People come in. You feed them too much, or they fall asleep. So be careful. But anyway, it's a nice, you know, I honestly have been doing this now for how long have you been in this building?
10 years?
Is it, I don't think it can't be 10 years because it was right after I think I moved here. It used to be at Trinity Church. Trinity, yeah, I know Trinity was there, and then they moved them out for the clothing bank people, and you got this building. So I met Jason back at Trinity. By the way, they have a clothing bank at Trinity Church, so if you're in need of, my wife's over there now and do a nice job. So
Close up the stream real quick.
you're gonna wrap us up now?
Yeah, unless you can just, we can keep talking though.
All right, go ahead. She's gonna end it, but if you want to stick around and talk, I'm here.
All right, thank you guys for joining us online and in person. Enjoyed the food. We also have a class tonight. It's Intro to Power Tools at 6 p.m. So unfortunately, we won't have kazoopies, but we will have our delicious snacks. So come on by, 6 o'clock, bring a friend, and we'll see you guys later. And I was going to say go Broncos.
All right. So anyway, yeah, I'm still here. So if you know anything you want to talk about, I'm fine. If not, keep eating and enjoy yourself. Because I'm about to do that. No, I already ate. So.
Take a look at some of those devices.
Okay.